This man had nothing. Absolutely nothing. No money, no family, no future. And on the darkest night of his entire life, he found one piece of paper. That paper gave him exactly 90 days. And what he did in those 90 days, no one saw coming. Not even him. Before we dive in, what time are you listening right now? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please, like and subscribe for more videos like this. His name was Daniel, 29 years old, and his life had already broken apart. Not slowly, fast. One morning he had a job. By evening, he did not. One week his mother was a phone call away. The next week, she was in another city, trying to survive on her own. His father left even before that. His two older brothers stopped calling months ago. Not out of hate, out of exhaustion. Everyone in Daniel's life had run out of energy to hold things together. And Daniel, the youngest, the one everyone used to look after, was suddenly the one no one was looking after at all. He ended up in a small room, a room that cost almost nothing because it was worth almost nothing. A single bed, a single light. A single door that he locked every night, not because he was afraid of someone coming in, but because he was afraid of someone seeing how he was living. He had no job, no savings, no plan, nothing. Just four walls, and a mind that had started believing this was forever. And here is the dangerous part. When you believe something is forever, you stop fighting it. Daniel stopped fighting. He stopped applying for work. He stopped going outside with any purpose. He stopped calling anyone. He just existed, day after day, like a person who had already given up but was still breathing. But one night, that changed. He was walking. No reason, no destination, just walking because the room felt like a cage and he needed air. The streets were empty. The light from the shops was dim. And he passed one small shop that he had passed 100 times before. But this time something in the window caught his eye. A piece of paper, small, torn, stuck to the glass like someone had placed it there without even thinking. And on that paper, in simple handwriting, were just a few words. 90 days. That is all you need. 90 days to decide who you are going to become. Daniel stopped, read it once, twice, 3 times, and something happened inside his chest. Not a big feeling, not a dramatic rush. A crack, a small crack in something that had been sealed shut for a very long time. And through that crack, one single thought entered his mind. What if? What if 90 days is actually enough? What if I actually try? He went home. He sat on that bed, and he did something he had not done in months. He made a decision. He grabbed a piece of paper. He wrote the number 90 on it, and he stuck it on the wall right in front of where he slept. So the first thing he would see every morning was that number, 90 days. That was his deadline. That was his fight, and it started tomorrow. Day 1 was not dramatic. He woke up, he looked at the number, and he got up. That was it. He got up, and he walked outside. But understand this, for a man who had been lying in that bed day after day doing nothing, getting up and walking outside was not small. It was the hardest thing he had done in weeks, because every part of his mind was telling him, what is the point? And for the first time in a long time, he answered that voice. He said, I do not know yet, but I am going to find out. Day 5. He started walking with purpose, not to any specific place, but with his eyes open. He started watching how the world worked, how people moved, how things were done, how someone could go from having nothing to having something. He watched carefully, like a man studying a map he had never seen before, like a man who was finally, after a very long sleep, actually paying attention. Day 8. He saw a notice board outside a small shop, jobs and opportunities written on small pieces of paper, pinned one next to another. He had seen boards like this before. He had walked past them dozens of times. But this time, he stopped. He read every single notice, and one of them stood out. It said, Community Center, Volunteers needed. No experience required. Just show up. Just show up. 3 words, and something about those 3 words made Daniel feel like they had been written specifically for him. Day 10. He walked into that community center, and the moment he stepped through those doors, something started that he could not have predicted. Something that was going to rearrange his entire life from the inside out. The man running the place was called Marcus. Marcus was not loud. He was not inspiring in the way people talk about in movies. He was quiet, steady. The kind of man who looked at you and you felt like he could see everything, not just your face. Everything. And the first thing Marcus did when Daniel walked in was not ask him questions. He did not ask where he came from. He did not ask about his life, or his past, or his situation. He just looked at him. And then he said, "We are building things today. Come and join. Come and join." That was all. No big speech. No ceremony. Just an open door and a simple invitation. And Daniel joined. And the first thing he tried to build was a disaster. A complete disaster. His hands did not know what they were doing. He cut wrong. He measured wrong. He held tools the wrong way. And Marcus watched every single mistake happen. And here is the important part. Marcus did not criticize him, not once. He walked over. Quietly. Calmly. And he showed Daniel how it was done. With his own hands. Slowly, clearly. And then he stepped back, and Daniel tried again. Day 11. He tried again. Failed again. Tried again. Day 12. Something worked. Something small came together under his hands that actually made sense. That actually looked like what it was supposed to look like. And Marcus looked at it, and he nodded. Just one nod. A small nod. But that nod hit Daniel harder than any compliment he had ever received in his entire life. Because it was not given for free. Because it was earned, and because no one had looked at something Daniel made and acknowledged it in a very, very long time. And that nod became something. It became a reason to come back the next day. Day 15. Daniel showed up again. No one asked him to. No one reminded him. He just came. Because something had started pulling him there. Not just the work, the feeling. The feeling of being somewhere he was needed, of doing something that someone else could actually use, of not being invisible. Day 17. Marcus introduced him to a woman who ran a small food stand 2 streets away. Her name was Sarah. She needed someone to help her carry and set up supplies every morning. Very early, before 5. Daniel said yes without hesitation, and the next morning he was there at 4:30, carrying boxers in the dark, stacking things, preparing for a day that had not even started yet. The work was invisible. No one saw him doing it, but the PE was real. Small, but real. And when Sarah handed him that first amount of money at the end of the week, Daniel held it in his hand, and something changed inside him that he could not explain with words, because it was not just money. It was proof. Proof that he could do something. Proof that someone was willing to pay him for his time and his effort. Proof that he was not useless. And for someone who had spent months believing he was exactly that, useless, that proof was worth more than the money itself. He was doing 2 things now. The community center with Marcus in the afternoons. The food stand with Sarah in the mornings. And he was tired. His body was sore. His hands were rough, but he was not complaining. Because for the first time in months, his days had shape, they had structure. They had meaning. And every evening when he came home and looked at that number on the wall, he crossed off another day. And watching that number shrink felt like watching himself grow. Day 24. Day 24, something shifted in how Daniel carried himself. He stood a little straighter. He looked people in the eye when he talked to them. He spoke with a little more weight behind his words. It was subtle, but it was there, and the people around him started to notice. Marcus noticed. Sarah noticed. Even the people at the community center who did not know his name started to notice. There was something different about this young man. something that had not been there 2 weeks ago. Day 28, and this is where the story takes its first real turn. Ruth walked into the community center that afternoon. She was not there to volunteer. She was not there to learn anything. She was there because she needed help, real help. She ran a small business, handmade household items, good quality, but she was one person doing everything alone, and she was drowning, quietly, slowly, but drowning. And Marcus, without Daniel knowing, had told her about him. Marcus had told Ruth exactly what he had seen in Daniel over the past 18 days. A man who showed up, a man who did not complain, a man who was getting better every single day. Ruth walked in, and she watched Daniel work for about 15 minutes. She did not interrupt. She did not say anything. She just watched. And then she walked up to him, and she said, "I need someone exactly like you. Not next week, today." And here is the moment that everything hinges on. Because when Ruth said those words, something happened inside Daniel. The old voice came back, loud, clear. It said, "You are not ready. You will fail. You always fail." And for 1 second, Daniel almost listened to it. Almost said no. Almost walked away the way he had walked away from everything else before. But he did not. He looked at Ruth, and he said, yes. One word, yes. And that one word became the door through which his entire life walked into a new direction. The work with Ruth was nothing like working with Marcus. Marcus was patient, Ruth was not. Ruth was sharp. She expected things done right. She expected them done fast, and she expected them done without excuses. And in the first few days, Daniel struggled. The pressure was real. The standards were high, and there were moments, several of them, when he wanted to quit. When the weight of it felt too much. When that old familiar feeling of not being good enough crept back in and whispered, "This is too hard. You are not built for this." But Ruth had seen something in Daniel that Daniel had not yet seen in himself, and she refused to let him disappear back into that old version of himself. One evening, after a particularly bad day, after Daniel had made a mistake that cost them hours of work and he was sitting there staring at the ground ready to give up, Ruth sat down next to him, and she did not comfort him. She did not say it is okay. She looked at him straight, and she said this. She said, "The people who fail in life are not the ones who lack talent. They are the ones who stopped before anyone could show them what they were actually capable of. You have not stopped, so do not stop now. Keep going." And Daniel kept going. He was faster now, sharper. He was learning the business from the inside, not just how to make things, how to think about things, how things connected, how one small decision in the morning could change everything by the end of the day. And Ruth started trusting him with more, not just tasks, decisions. She started asking him what he thought, and Daniel gave answers. Real answers, thoughtful answers. Thoughtful answers, answers that surprised even Ruth. And that surprised Daniel too, because he did not know he had those answers inside him. He did not know he had been absorbing that much until he opened his mouth, and it came out. But it was not all smooth. There were days when things went wrong. Days when a batch of products came out wrong and had to be thrown away. Days when a supplier did not deliver, and everything shifted. Days when Ruth and Daniel disagreed about something, and the tension between them was thick enough to feel. And on those days, Daniel learned something important, something that no book could ever teach him. He learned that building something real is not just about the good days. It is about what you do on the bad ones. It is about showing up when showing up feels pointless. And it is about not running when things get hard. Because things always get hard. That is not a sign that something is wrong. That is a sign that something is real. Day 40. The money was growing. Slowly, but growing. Enough to cover his room. Enough to eat properly for the first time in months. Enough to buy things he needed without calculating whether he could afford them. And Daniel started to feel something that he had almost forgotten existed. Stability. The quiet feeling of knowing that tomorrow was going to be okay. that he was not going to wake up with nothing, that the ground beneath him was finally, after all, this time, solid, and that feeling of solid ground was addictive in the best way. Because once you feel it, once you know what it is like to stand on something firm after standing on nothing for so long, you never want to go back. Ever. He started noticing something in the people around him. The way they looked at him had changed. Not just Marcus and Ruth. Everyone. The neighbors, the shopkeepers, the people at the community center. They looked at him like he was someone. Not just a body taking up space. Someone who mattered. Someone who was becoming something real. And that look, that shift in the way other people saw him, was like fuel poured onto a fire that was already burning inside him. Day 50. Ruth told him something that evening that stopped him in his tracks. She told him the business numbers were up, not a little, noticeably. And she told him it was because of him, because of the quality he was bringing, because of the way he was showing up every single day without fail. And she looked at him and she said, "You are not just working for me anymore, Daniel. You are building this with me." And those words, "building this with me," landed inside Daniel like an anchor dropping into deep water. Because no one had ever said anything like that to him. No one had ever included him in something like that. And it changed something. It changed the way Daniel saw himself. Not as someone who was being helped, as someone who was helping, as someone who was necessary. Day 58. Daniel had saved enough to move. Not to somewhere big. Not somewhere impressive, but somewhere better. A place with a real window. A window that looked out onto a street where people walked and life moved. And on the first morning he woke up in that place and looked out through that window. He stood there for a long time, because that view, that simple, ordinary view of a street with people on it, was the most beautiful thing he had seen in years. Not because it was beautiful, but because he had earned it. Every single part of that view was the result of 58 days of showing up, of trying, of not giving up. And he knew that. He felt that. In his bones. And then day 60 it happened, and everything almost came crashing down. Ruth called him that night. Her voice was different. Tight. Controlled. The kind of voice people use when they are trying very hard not to sound scared. She told him to come to the shop. Now? Not tomorrow. Now. And something in the way she said, it made Daniel's stomach drop before he even knew what was wrong. When he arrived, Ruth was sitting at the table. The lights were low. Papers were spread out in front of her. Numbers, lists, calculations done by hand, because she could not afford to outsource anything. And she was staring at those papers, the way a person stares at something that is telling them news they do not want to hear. Daniel sat down across from her and because he could see that she was not ready to talk yet. She was still processing it herself. Then she looked up. And she told him a big company had moved into their area. Not a small company. Not a local one. A company with resources that Ruth could not even begin to imagine. A company that had warehouses and delivery systems and advertising budgets that were bigger than Ruth's entire yearly earnings. They sold the same kind of products that Ruth sold, but their prices were lower. Much lower. So much lower that there was no way Ruth could match them. And in just 10 days, Ruth had lost more than half of her customers, more than half. The people who had been buying from her for months. The people who knew her. The people who liked her products. They had simply gone to the cheaper option, because that is what people do when money is tight. They go where the price is lower. It is not a choice made out of cruelty. It is a choice made out of survival. And the numbers on the table in front of Ruth told one very clear story. If this continued, if even one more week passed like this, the business would not survive the month. It would close. Everything Ruth had built over the past years, everything she had poured her life into, would disappear. And not just her income. Her identity, her purpose, the thing that made her feel like she mattered. Daniel sat there, and he listened to every word. And when Ruth finished, she looked at him, and in her eyes, he saw it. Fear. Real, genuine fear. The kind that comes from watching something you built with your own hands start to fall apart in front of you. and not knowing how to stop it. The kind of fear that does not make noise. The kind that sits quietly inside your chest and squeezes. And Daniel looked at those papers, and he looked at Ruth, and something inside him ignited. Not fear, not panic, not the old hopeless feeling of giving up. Something else entirely. Something sharp, something focused, something that felt like every single day of the last 68 days being compressed into one single moment of absolute clarity. He knew exactly what had to be done. He stood up, and he said, "The big company can beat us on price. They can beat us on speed, but they cannot beat us on one thing, and that one thing is the truth. The real story behind this business. Who built it? Why it matters, and who in this neighborhood has the power to keep it alive." Ruth looked at him, and for the first time in a very long time, something shifted in her expression. It was not fear anymore. It was something else. It was the look of someone who had just realized that the person sitting across from them was no longer the same person who had walked in 60 days ago. The next morning, Daniel went to see Marcus. He told him everything. The problem, the plan, and Marcus listened. And when Daniel finished, Marcus did not hesitate. He said, "Then go. Do not wait. Do not think about it anymore. Go today. Go now." So Daniel went, and what he did next was the hardest, most uncomfortable, most terrifying thing he had ever done in his entire life. He went door to door, in the same neighborhood where he had spent months feeling invisible, in the same streets where people had looked right through him like he was not there. He knocked on doors, one by one, and he talked to people, and he told them a story. Not his story, Ruth's story. The real one. Who she was, what she had built from absolutely nothing, how she had done it alone, and how a company with all the money in the world was about to take it away from her, and how the people in this very neighborhood, the people living on these very streets, had the power to stop it, not by doing anything complicated, just by choosing to support her, just by choosing the real thing over the cheap thing. And here is what happened at those doors. Because it was not easy. It was not clean. It was messy. It was uncomfortable. It was the kind of work that no one sees and no one applauds you for. The first door he knocked on that morning, a woman opened it halfway. She looked at him the way you look at someone you do not recognize and do not particularly want to know. And Daniel started talking. He told her about Ruth, about the business, about what was happening, and she listened for about 30 seconds. And then she said, "I am busy," and she closed the door. Not hard, not with anger. Just closed it, like Daniel had never been there at all. And standing there, on that doorstep, with that closed door in front of him, Daniel felt Italiano. That pull. That old, familiar, heavy pull. The voice inside him that said, "See, no one cares. You are wasting your time. You are still the same person you were on day one. Still invisible. Still not worth listening to." And for one full minute, Daniel did not move. He just stood there, staring at that door. And the pull was strong, stronger than he expected. Because rejection does not get easier just because you have grown. It still hurts the same way. It still feels the same way. The only difference is what you do with it after. He took a breath, and he walked to the next door, and he knocked. The second door was worse. A man opened it and looked at Daniel like he had done something wrong just by showing up. He did not even let Daniel finish his first sentence. He said, "I do not have time for this," and he shut the door. Third door. No answer at all. Daniel knocked twice, 3 times. Nothing. He moved on. Fourth door. An older woman. She opened it wide. And she actually looked at Daniel, really looked at him. And she said, "Tell me again. What did you say?" And Daniel told her the whole thing. Ruth, the business, the big company. And this woman listened the whole time, without interrupting, without looking away. And when Daniel finished, she nodded slowly. And she said, "I will come to the shop tomorrow." And that one yes, that one single yes, out of 4 doors, that was enough. That was enough to keep him moving to the 5th door, and the 6th, and the 7th. By the end of that first day, Daniel had knocked on more than 30 doors, and out of those 30 doors, maybe 8 people had actually listened. And out of those 8, maybe 4 had said they would come to the shop. 4 out of 30, it was not a victory. Not by any measure, but it was not nothing either. And Daniel walked home that night, with his feet aching and his voice rough and his chest tight from saying the same words over and over again. But he was not defeated. He was exhausted, but he was not defeated. And there is a big difference between those two things. The next morning he went back out. And the morning after that, and the morning after that, day after day, door after door. Some days were better than others. Some days he got more yeses. Some days he got more closed doors. But every single day he went back out, because every single no was just one more door that was done. One more door that could not stop him anymore. And eventually, the yeses started to outnumber the nos. And here is something that happened around day 70 that Daniel did not expect. He started getting recognized. People who he had talked to earlier started opening their doors before he even knocked. They had seen him coming down the street, and some of them were already outside, already waiting, already wanting to talk. And some of them said things that hit Daniel in places he did not know could still be hit. One man sighed, "I watched you come down this street last week, and I thought, that young man is doing something real. I want to be a part of it." And Daniel stood there, and he did not know what to say, because no one had ever said something like that about him before. Ever. But every single time that pull came, Daniel did something different than what he had done his entire life before this. He did not let it win. He took a breath, he walked to the next door, and he knocked again, because this was not about him. This was about Ruth, about Marcus, about the community center, about every single person who had believed in him when he had given them absolutely no reason to. And that reason bigger than himself, was stronger than every closed door. Day 72. The first signs started appearing. Small ones. A few customers came back to Ruth's shop. Not many at first, but some. And they did not just buy something and leave the way they used to. They stayed, they talked, they told Ruth they had heard about what was happening. They told her they had heard about Daniel, about the doors he had knocked on, about the story he had been telling. They told her they wanted to support her, not just because the products were good, but because the story behind those products was real, and because choosing her felt like choosing something that actually mattered in a world where most things did not. And Ruth looked at Daniel that evening with an expression he had never seen on her face before. Gratitude. Real, deep, unshakable gratitude. The kind that does not come from words. The kind that comes from someone realizing that another person just did something for them that they could never fully repay. Every day, more people came. Word was spreading. Not through any advertisement, not through any campaign. Through conversations, through people telling other people. A woman at the market told her neighbor, a man at the corner shop told his friend. And each time the story was told, it grew a little. It picked up a little more weight, because the story was true, and true stories have a way of traveling on their own. Ruth's numbers started climbing, slowly at first. Then, faster, the customers were coming back. And new customers were coming too, people who had never heard of her business before. People who came specifically because they had heard what had happened, because they wanted to be on the side of something real. And Ruth looked at the numbers, and she looked at Daniel, and she did not say anything. She did not have to. The numbers said everything. Day 82. The big company was still there. They were still selling. They were still trying. But something had shifted. The ground beneath them had changed, because the neighborhood had made a choice. A quiet, collective, unstoppable choice. And that choice was to stand behind the person who had built something real, not the company that had come in with money, the woman who had come up with nothing. Day 8. Daniel went back to the community center. He sat with Marcus for a while in the same spot where he had sat on day 10 when he first walked in. The same chair. The same corner. But everything else was different. Everything about the way he sat in that chair was different, and Marcus could see it. They did not talk much. They did not need to. Marcus looked at Daniel, and Daniel looked at Marcus, and in that silence, everything that had happened over the last 85 days existed. Every mistake, every door that closed, every morning that Daniel almost did not get up, every moment of doubt, every moment of fear, every single moment that had built him, piece by piece, into the person he was sitting there as right now. And Marcus said one thing. Just one thing. He said, "You know what changed, Daniel. You did not just find a job. You did not just make money. You became someone that other people believe in. And that is not something anyone can teach you. No one taught you that. That is something you built. By yourself, one day at a time." And when Marcus said those words, Daniel felt something move inside his chest. Not sadness, not pride exactly. Something deeper than both. The feeling of hearing someone else see you the way you are finally starting to see yourself. Day 87. Daniel went to the shop window, the same shop where he had first seen that piece of paper, the one with the words that had cracked something open in him. He stood in front of that window and he looked. And the paper was gone. Someone had taken it down. Or it had fallen, or the wind had carried it away. It did not matter, because the words on that paper were no longer on a piece of paper in a shop window. They were inside Daniel. They were living inside him, and they were going to stay there forever. Day 89. The night before the end, Daniel was sitting in his new room. The one with the window. The light from outside was coming in, soft and quiet. The kind of light that does not demand anything. And he looked at the piece of paper on his wall. The one with the number 90, and there was only one number left to cross off. 1, and he sat there and he thought about everything. Day 1. The dark room. Te silence. The voice that said, "You are nothing." And then day 89. This room, this window, this life that looked nothing like the one he had started with. And the distance between those 2 points was not luck. It was not a gift. It was not handed to him by anyone. It was not given. It was built. Day by day, decision by decision. Door by door. One knock after another. One yes after another. No. One morning after another morning. 90 of them, and every single one of them mattered. Day 90. The last day. And Daniel did not celebrate. He did not stop or went to work. He showed up at the community center. He visited Marcus. He spent time with the people who had become his people. And at the end of that day, Ruth sat him down. And she told him something that Daniel will never forget for the rest of his life. She said, "When you first walked into my life, you were someone looking for a chance. Now you are someone that other people come to for a chance. That is not something that happens to everyone. That is something that only happens to people who refuse to stop." And then Ruth told him something else, something practical, something that changed the direction of his future completely. She told him that she wanted him to be her partner, not just a worker, not just someone who showed up every day, a real partner. In the business, equal. Together. And Daniel looked at her, and he did not hesitate. He said yes, the same way he had said yes on date 1 word. Yes. But this time, that yes was not a blind step into the unknown. This time, that yes was the result of 90 days of proving that he was exactly the right person to say it. Today, Daniel still wakes up every morning and faces the same world. Tisimicity, the same streets, the same sky above him. Nothing about the outside world has changed, but the way he faces it is completely different. He faces it as someone who knows what it feels like to have nothing, who knows what it feels like to believe you are nothing, and who knows, more than anything, that both of those things were lies, lies that the world told him. Lies that he told himself, lies that he almost believed forever. But 90 days proved them wrong. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that anyone outside of his small circle would ever notice. In the quietest, most powerful way possible. One day at a time. And here is what Daniel does now that he never did before. When he sees someone on the street who looks the way he used to look, someone who is staring at the ground, someone who is moving through the world like they have already accepted that they do not matter, Daniel does not look away. He does not pretend he does not see them. He stops, and he looks at them. And sometimes he says something. Not a big speech, not advice, just a word, or a nod, or a look that says, "I see you. You are here." And that matters, because Daniel knows what it is like to be invisible. And he knows that the smallest thing, the tiniest crack in the wall, can be the thing that changes everything. Marcus is still at the community center, still opening those doors every single day, still not asking anyone where they came from, or what they have lost, or how far they have fallen, still just saying, "Come in," and people come. More and more people come through those doors every week. Because word travels, because when someone's life changes because of an open door, they tell someone else about it. And that someone else comes looking for the same door, and it is still open. It is always open, because that is what Marcus does. That is what he has always done. And Daniel is proof of what happens when someone walks through. Ruth's business is stronger now than it has ever been. The big company is still around. They did not disappear. They did not go bankrupt. They are still there, still selling, still trying. But they are no longer the threat they used to be, because something happened that no amount of money could have prevented. The neighborhood chose. They chose the real thing, the thing that was built by a real person, the thing that had a story behind it. And that choice, that quiet, collective, unstoppable choice made by ordinary people on ordinary streets, turned out to be more powerful than any amount of resources the big company could ever throw at them. Because people do not just buy products. They buy meaning. They buy story. They buy the feeling of being connected to something that matters. And Ruth had that. The big company never could. And Daniel is right there beside Ruth. Every single day. Working, building, growing. Not because he has to be. Not because someone is forcing him, but because he knows exactly what it costs to get there. He knows every door that closed in his face. Every morning that almost broke him. Every single moment over those 90 days, where giving up would have been easier than continuing. And he knows that the only reason he is standing where he is standing right now, the only reason his life looks the way it looks, is because on one night, on one ordinary evening, in one small shop window that he had passed 100 times before, he read a few words on a piece of paper. And those words cracked something open inside him that could never, for the rest of his life, be sealed shut again. 90 days. That is all it took. 90 days and one decision. And that decision did not just change one life. It changed the lives of everyone connected to it. Ruth, Marcus, Sarah, the neighbors, the people at the community center, the woman at the fourth door who said yes, the man who watched Daniel walk down his street and felt something stir inside him. Everyone who said yes, everyone who opened a door, everyone who believed when believing was the hardest thing to do, all of them changed. Because of one man, because of one decision, because of 90 days. Because here is the truth that this entire story is really about. It is not about talent. It is not about luck. It is not about being special or chosen or different from anyone else. It is about one thing. One single thing. The decision to keep going. The decision to get up one more time. To knock on one more door. To try one more time, even when everything inside you is screaming stop. Even when the world has given you every reason to believe that trying is pointless. The decision to keep going anyway. That is the only thing that separates the people who make it from the people who do not. Not talent, not connections, not money, just the decision. Made once, and then made again, every single day, for 90 days. And if one man, with no money, no support, no one in his corner, can change his entire life in 90 days just by making that one decision and following through on it every single day, then think about what you could do. Think about what is sitting inside you right now that you have not touched yet. Think about what is possible for you right now. Tonight, tomorrow morning, not next month, not next year, not someday. Right now, one decision. 90 days. That is all it takes. You do not need to be ready. You do not need to have it all figured out. You just need to start, and then you need to keep starting. Every single day. Until the 90 days are done, and by then, you will not be the same person who began. Daniel was not special. He was not talented in any extraordinary way. He did not have connections or luck or a head start. He had nothing. And he turned nothing into everything. Not because the world gave him a chance, but because he decided to take one. And that is available to you right now, today, the same way it was available to him. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this. And also, please do share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone who needs this right now.